Hey everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. I want to show you a two different Dynamo scripts that will manage scope boxes. This is not a perfect solution. This is something I've wanted to do for some time, but I've never had a real use case, and I still kind of don't. But with tools like ChatGPT, I was able to knock out some of the things I wanted to do, like within 20 or 30 minutes. Um, I just went ahead and did that so I could talk about this because I think it's kind of cool, and I could see this kind of being embedded in a larger workflow when you're creating tons of models. You're doing model setups, you already have something that's creating your models and then creating your views and your sheets and so on. So you could have this as a part of that workflow where it'll create your scope boxes for you. And then you might have to do some manual updates, which that's where the second script that I'm going to show you kind of plays a role. But this is something I've wanted to do for actually years. Like a long time ago, I worked at a firm where they wanted to, I was tasked to look into scope boxes and potentially automating certain things with it, but there are limitations with scope boxes. And one of my recommendations was we could have a model that kind of has them all already, like a bunch of different sizes set up, and then just try to find the best fit. And we never went ahead with that, and so it's always been something in my mind to do just for fun, just to see if I could do it. So here it is. So I've got this sample model, which everything that I show you today will be shared. So check that out. It'll be in my GitHub. If you have trouble finding that, just comment or just let me know. And so this is the sample model. I'm in 2024 Revit. This should work in any other version. I'm not doing anything super special here, but I've got a linked, essentially scope box model. And this, with the boxes that are in there, I think it's like half a meg. So you could add a lot more. And these are kind of ugly. I also didn't consider, well, I didn't build in, for the scope boxes to rotate and stuff. So you could reduce this amount by, adding that functionality into the script. But I didn't do that. I just kind of kept this simple. And so I just made a bunch of different sizes. These are kind of ugly because there's no, math. There was no, I wasn't taking dimensions or anything and just, changing it by a foot. I was just kind of eyeballing it and then just updating them just to really just show an example when I start messing with the script and running it. But you can obviously build, if this is something you want to use, you could obviously take this and kind of build on it or even make your own. It's pretty simple, but this model here, this link, doesn't have anything other than scope boxes. So all I did was I did file, new, project, change this to none, and that's what I chose. And then I made the scope boxes in there. In this example, though, the Dynamo script is not going to update the name. So the name, like in this case, this is one that was created from the Dynamo script. You can see it says Scope Box 89. Now, you can build that into this, but that's just a heads up. There's some other things I didn't get time to build into this as well. Please let me know if it's something you're interested in. But I was going to add kind of the ability to add multiple scope boxes. So here's an overall, but then also add your area scope boxes. They're not going to be perfect. You have to update them, and that might change the location on the sheet. But that's where having something like the second script will kind of be handy. So anyways, I'm going to show you this. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to so it looks at the floors. We've got two different floors in here. I'm going to just drag this out a little bit. Here's the Dynamo script, and we will actually walk through this. And so I'm going to just pull that up, pull it over a little bit, and then I will run it. It'll take a second, and then you will see it places a new scope box. This is essentially supposed to represent the overall. There is a fit factor, or sorry, fit ranking number that I've added to this just to have a little bit more flexibility in what you can do with the scope box, so it's not just the best fit. And so this essentially just goes back like 4 from that. So you've got the best fit, and then if you go up to, and best fit is 1. If you go up to 2, that's going to be something a little bit bigger. You go up to 3, bigger, 4, bigger, and so on. So now if we switch this to 1 and then run it, this is going to be the best fit example. So that one's going to be the smallest scope box that fits within, like, that takes the bounding box of these 2 floors, and that bounding box fits within this scope box the best. So that's the best fit. And then if we go to 2 and run that, this will be a little bit bigger. Now it's not perfect, unfortunately. We've got some limitations, but you'll see if we change that, it'll kind of affect the outline. I found 4 to be pretty good and consistent. So that's something that can be kind of played with. All right, so to explain this Dynamo script, I won't go into everything, but you can take this and play with it yourself and kind of see what everything's doing. But there's a few different pieces I want to point out. So we've got the links, and this is just pulling in the link. And then what this is doing is it's getting the name of the link. It's just getting the file name parameter. So it's getting that type parameter, and then which is returning the name. And then we're just filtering for scope boxes. So this link is called scope boxes. So if you have other links, it'll filter that out. This was written in with ChatGPT. So I started with something, and then I just took it to there, and then it wrote the rest. So that was super helpful. And so that will grab the type parameter, and then we've got some filters and stuff. There's BIM Morph is being used. There's 2 nodes for that. There's this one, and then there's one other one over here to the right. So that one. And then there's also spring nodes as well. That's what's getting our midpoint for the bounding box. And so here we're just getting the scope boxes, kind of pulling them in, flattening. We're getting the bounding box, and then we're using all of that information. So we've got the links here, and then these are the floor plans. So these are the floors, or the floors themselves. And then we're getting the solids, and then flattening. The list has to be flattened so that it creates a bounding box around it. Otherwise, it'll create 2 separate bounding boxes. And then what we do is we look at the area, the bounding box, and then we look at all the areas of all of these, and then we find the best fit. So that's what this Python script does. Now, I started this like a long time ago. I did put this disclaimer in here, kind of explaining what the script is, and then that it was written partially with OpenAI. But you can see here all of the code and stuff. The fit rank is... the fit rank that's being used is being actually pushed into this here, and so that's what's running the that's what's essentially just giving an offset. Now it ignores that fit rank. I have it to where it ignores the fit rank only when you're like at the max size. So essentially when you have something too big, and I'll show an example of that in a second. But anyways, that Python script gets us a Boolean list, and I just returned a Boolean list because it was easy. My approach to this script, because I was just doing it for fun and in between a lot of different things, was just to keep it simple. It's like I'll just dump out a Boolean list, and then over here I'll just filter the existing list, and I'm sure there's easier ways to do this, and I could circle back with ChatGPT or something, or even go in there myself and tweak it a little bit. But I didn't want to spend much time in there, so I got it knocked out. And then that will give us our bounding box, or sorry, not our bounding box, but our actual elements, or our scope box. So that's going to be being passed into this one, which is going to copy that into the active document. And then we just have to reposition that scope box. So that's what the rest of this is doing. We're just getting the locations of the floor plan. So the not the floor plans, but the floors, like the bounding box that the floors are in. We're trying to find the center point of that, and then the center point of the scope box that we're choosing. And then I'm just getting a vector from that, and that's what we're passing into this last node here so that we can take the scope box that we've copied in and move it to the correct location, which in the background you can see would be where it's got the entire floor or all of the floors in the model. Now the floors are what I used here, but you can use walls, you can use all sorts of things. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. I mean, you could use like the what is it? The site. You know, you could use walls, all sorts of things. So now I'm gonna just take this, and we will grab one of these floors. We'll copy it up, and then let me bring this into view. And if we run it, it takes a minute, and you can see it creates it. Run it again. And then let me see if this is the biggest one. So we'll run that. And so this is what happens when it's the biggest one. So it's going to kind of ignore the view ranking. So it's not going to take that in because really there's nothing that it could go. It can't go any bigger. Because this is the last size. So if we take this and bring it down here, you'll see that it's right here. It's the biggest size. And so what it does is it essentially just places it the biggest size. And then if you add more sizes, then it'll kind of grab those. And one cool thing that I don't have, and I'm not going to show an example of it because I just don't have the data to do that, is you could look at all of your models across your entire company, you know, and pull the data related to scope boxes and see what the, you know, what's the average size of, you know, all the different scope boxes we use. Or not the average size, but what's the consistent sizes that we use on most projects given between, like, you know, a foot or so or whatever. And then those are the ones you create. So anyways, that will place the largest size. And then this is the other part of this workflow. So I'm going to close this. And again, this is below in the description. Check out my GitHub. Both of these Dynamo scripts and the Revit model will be up there for you to check out. So this is the second piece, and I closed Dynamo all the way, so I'm gonna open it again. And this is kind of buggy. It's not super buggy, and it works really well in Dynamo Player. But for Dynamo, I actually haven't had time to dig into this. I don't know if it's caching it and just being weird, but for some reason it's ignoring the Boolean that I have. So, but before I talk about that, let me explain what it does. So we've got this scope box, and it, like, as an example, like say it's right here, like it doesn't, you know, fit within the area, and so we have to modify it. Well, say this is a part of a larger workflow, and it's created all of your sheets, and it's placed the views on there, and those views have the scope box associated to them. Now here's an example, but I'm going to switch it to that new scope box. So let me scroll down and find the other one. So this is 135. You'll see it's this one right here. And then let me jump to the sheet actually. So this is an ugly sheet. I just drew some lines. And then like let's say it's right here, right? So this is how it looks, and that's not how we want it to look. And so we need to modify that viewport, and so we need to kind of take it up here, maybe bring it over a little bit, and then unfortunately, by doing that, that's going to cause issues with the center point. So then on our sheet, it's going to move it a little bit, and so we have to manually kind of move it back over here. And that's what this script helps with. Is it will update all of your views. So what you can do is manually update your scope boxes, get them in the right positions, make sure everything looks right there, and then this will fix everything and reposition it on your sheets. And not everything is in the center. You might have things all over the place in different areas. And so what this does is it'll kind of save that location, and then you can run the script a second time to update it. So let me actually go back, and so here's the current location, and this is the center point, like right there. And so we're going to take this script, and this is not a very big script. There's only a few things. This is mostly written in Python. But if we change this to true, which is save current location, then run it. What that's going to do is it's going to save it in the location of your model. So this is the sample stuff that I've got that I'm working on. You'll see that it saves it right here. View port location. And so it's going to save the viewport ID because it needs that information whenever you run it again. And then it saves the location of where it's at on the sheet. So now if we switch it to false, you'll see, and actually this is where I have to save it and then close it. This is where in Dynamo Player it works a lot better. But if we open up that script again, it's set to false. And before I run that, I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to reposition this. So then we're back here. You'll see it shift over only a little bit. But if we run it again, you'll see it moves. So that's a small little thing, but when you have hundreds of sheets and you've just modified the scope boxes and that adjusted the location of where those scope boxes are, you could see where something like this could be really beneficial. And then just to give you a more like exaggerated example, if we set this to true, run it, and then I don't have to save that, but if I close it, reopen it, set that to false, and then run it, it should update it, but it looks like it's not. So let's try to do this again. So we will run it, and then instead of closing it, what I'm going to do is just switch the, I'm just going to unplug the input. So let me drag it over. So this is the node here. I'm going to unplug that input. I'm going to set it to false. Let's save it right here. So there it goes. So I jumped to the new to the original location. But like I kind of mentioned, it's kind of buggy because of I don't know if it's caching it or something, but for some reason this node runs like every single time, even though there's a condition in there that checks for the Boolean, it just will run every single time, and which means that it'll run the text file in, like you move it, runs the text file, and then so this viewport node here is just constantly updating it to the same location. It's not doing anything with it. So real quick, I want to explain kind of what these do. So they're pretty simple. So we've got a Boolean that checks a condition and it's true and false. There's an update view, a save view location. This one's going to update the viewport location. This one's going to save the viewport location. This one runs first, and then you run this one. This here just gets the views that have a scope box assigned to them. So it doesn't adjust anything else. So that's what this does. And then this one over here, all it's doing when it's saving that is it's saving the location of it's saving the location of the viewports, and then it's saving just the IDs so that we can easily grab that when it runs again. And it's saving it in the location of the file, so it's just saving it in the location of the model path, so wherever you have that saved. I used to have this script set up to where it would save it in extensible storage, but because that's managed in different ways and different versions of Revit, it was just easier just writing it to a text file and being done with it. So that's what's going on here, but if you wanted to, you could update this to use extensible storage, and then it doesn't write anything, and then you just remove that data from extensible storage when you're done. And then the second part of this, it will update the viewports. Now, to do this, and I actually have not tested this with 2024, because I think, if I remember correctly, there's some API like options now. Like there's some functionality in Revit that allows you to mess with the view title, but I haven't messed with that yet. And so what this does is, instead of like moving the viewport, which doesn't fix, like, because after you scale down the scope box, which changes the extents of like the crop, it'll leave the view title like where it's at. So then it looks all weird. And so you have to, so after you adjust it, you run it, and then it'll reposition it by deleting the original viewport and then placing it back on the sheet. So that's really important, and that's something that's kind of important during a setup, so that you don't cause other issues if you happen to use this later when a project's already started. But this will delete it and then place the viewport, which fixes the view title. Now, if the API allows for adjustments there, then obviously you could build on this to not delete it, and then it just repositions the viewport, and then you can adjust the view title yourself, rather than deleting and placing it and having it do it itself. And so you'll have more flexibility, I think, in what you can do with it, because deleting can cause other issues during model setup. Not a big deal, but yeah. So anyways, that's kind of it for this. Like you see here, it's just reading the text file. There's nothing special really. It's just pulling that data in. We're getting the sheet ID, the view ID, and the sheet ID is associated to the viewport, so that's really easy. So when you have the viewport ID, then you can easily get the view. Let me change something real quick. That's a small thing, but I had viewpoint in there, and it was like, when I wrote this a long time ago, I put that in there. I don't know why, so I'm just switching it to viewport, and that was just like one last piece that I didn't see earlier. So anyways, this is kind of the script. There's two different ones, so definitely check them out, read them, and then play around with them. Let me know if you have any questions. And hopefully these help you out. We use these at my firm, or at least we use this one. The other one was one that I just threw together real quick. Now that might be something that we use in the future when we automate more of the setups. But definitely let me know if you use them. Let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, hopefully you like this video, and I will see you in the next one.